Hello, everybody. My name is Fable, and welcome to today's impromptu 12 FPS, a matter of perspective. I am Fable, and with me today is.
Hello, and howdy. I am Whirl.
So, me and Will were talking, and we decided, you know what, this is a conversation that it needs to happen, or we want it to happen, because we talked about it and got into our brains. We got the
We
brain worms.
we infected ourselves with brain rot.
Yep. So, this is gonna take the reins a little bit for the intro here, if you don't mind.
Alrighty. I am sitting back. Paint me a word picture.
All right. It starts out late in the night. It's quiet. It's really quiet. You know, Toontown. It's a city, and cities usually aren't quiet. But this street that Bob's family's apartment building is on is quiet right now. Uh, every it's about the time everyone else has gone to bed and is asleep, except one. There's one single light on in the living room area. Currently, Bob is at the table. He is poring over stacks and stacks of books, uh, as well as different items that he's collected for a. As the camera zooms in, it zooms in on one of the books that says, with a chapter title that says Summoning Rituals. And Bob is just going over the last bits of his notes one more time as he is pocketing all the items that he needs. He Seeing that he has everything, he gets up and starts to leave and stops, looks back at the book that he'd been reading, closes it, and puts it in his hammer space, because just in case. Then he goes to the door. He pauses again. He goes to one of the rooms and checks inside just to make sure everyone is asleep and comfortable, and that everything is right. Once seeing that all his family is asleep, then he goes to the front door and he grabs his pastel pink cardigan and he leaves, locking the door behind him. He goes downstairs. He goes to the parking lot. He gets in his car and he drives. Uh, he's not quite sure where to do this. I mean, where do you do this? I mean, where do you do what he is about to do? What he is about to do that he in his mind knows is maybe not the best idea, but you know, he's talked to a literal goddess about how to do this, and even she doesn't seem to have all the answers that are satisfying him. So he's taking initiative, and he's going to drive out probably closer to the city limits, or just somewhere where it's empty enough for him to park the car, get out, and make sure that he's alone. And he'll take out the items from his hammer space and set up what he needs to set up for this ritual. Looks at everything. He double checks his book one more time, his notes. He takes a breath. Okay. I hope you could hear me, so I have to talk to you. And he starts the summoning ritual to talk to Retrospect.
The ritual goes fairly smoothly. It's not exactly a difficult one compared to all the other ones in this book. This one's actually pretty simple. You just kind of have to hold out a ticking clock and over a sigil that you've drawn on the ground and wait for it to stop. And it does stop. And Bob, I'm going to take a little bit of initiative myself and say that you have somehow managed to find your way into the exact same place that you wound up when you left Memory Lane. And you hear the fountain stop. You hear the ambient sounds of night stop. The clock in your hand, the little pocket watch, it stops ticking. And there is a feeling of everything being slow and still, and distantly you can hear clockwork and the sound of rain. And there is a voice from somewhere sort of next to you, not behind you, not like Prismatone was, but sort of next to you, sitting on the fountain's edge. Well, you're certainly the last person I expected to try and call me. What can I do for you?
Hello, Retrospect. I wanted to have a talk.
Oh?
Bob looks over at the goddess. Doesn't look happy to be here, but he looks. It's a bit of resignation, but also determination as well.
Fable, roll me perception.
All right. 14.
Okay, 14's enough. Bob, you notice that when she's summoned, Retrospect looks a little different. That blurry distortion that usually hangs out over one of her eyes is gone. Her eyes aren't those bright, vibrant swirls of gold and silver either. They're just one gold, one silver. Heterochromia. Kind of like a certain friend of yours. Well, brother of yours. She's dressed differently, too. More dressed for the weather in a long, dark coat with actual pants on instead of just being in a magician's assistant leotard and slippers, with a turtleneck sweater underneath. And she tips her hat, because she does still have that, and stands up. And from her hat, she pulls out a small cafe table, a couple of chairs, and some cups already full of steaming coffee, and gestures for him to take a seat as she takes the other one. It's weird, though. She almost looks sickly in the mortal world. You can't place why, but she doesn't look altogether healthy.
Considering how he left her the last time, the state that she had appeared to be in by the end of their fight, he's not too surprised by that, though he's definitely intrigued. Though it definitely interests him. He wasn't sure what he was expecting, that's to be certain. But he looks at the table, and I'm not going to make you roll because I'm aware of the modifier you have to your god's insight.
Oh,
So I'm just
no,
going to
that's
say,
just Prismatone. I can roll for insight if you want.
yeah, if you want to, I'm willing to give it to you though.
If you're willing to give it to me, I'll take it, because her
Yeah,
insight's
Bob
not
is
great.
Bob is for most part, he's not an actor, he's an open book. It's very much distrust. It's distrustful. Retrospect, he does not trust you.
And she sort of steeples her fingers and looks at you over the tops of her hands and says, "You called me here. If I wanted to kill you, I'd just stab you. I don't do poison."
Huh. Well, you'll forgive me if I don't fully believe that. Considering our last meeting.
Hmm,
I would like answers, if you're willing to give them.
sure. I've never had much of a reason for lying. What
Do
do
you
you
have
want to
a...
know?
Well, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm talking to someone who doesn't know anything. I imagine it won't be surprising to you to know that I've been doing research
Hmm,
and asking other people questions about you.
yeah, probably kind of hard to find answers, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Researching a god was not how I expected to spend my evenings.
Hmm, especially not one who can make people forget she exists, huh?
And Bob frowns at that. Or he was already frowning, but his frown has deepened. Yup. That's one way to put it. Bob takes another look at the chair at the empty chair at the table, and he considers it for a moment. Before finally he will go over and he will sit.
And
I'm
she just
surprised.
kind of nods in acknowledgement.
To be honest, I'm a bit surprised you accepted the call at all.
Well, like all deities, I'm bound by certain rules. If I am called, I have to come.
Bound by rules. That's almost funny to hear.
Hmm.
Considering most of what I have heard was saying that you're actually a bit of a rule breaker.
Hmm.
And
Heard
that you're
heard from.
I really I'm willing to bet you already know.
I don't know. There's a few people in the Pantheon who don't like me much. Prismatone comes to mind. She's hmm. She's angry with me most of the time.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
In retrospect, takes a sip of her coffee.
Why did you do it?
Which bit? The taking you in the first place? The erasing your memories? The stabbing?
All of it. Why?
Huh. You don't think I did it for the reason I said I did, do you?
I think it's incredibly stupid for people to hurt others because they're insulted.
Well, I'd quite agree with that. And
And,
she kind of laughs.
and frankly, I think it's hard for someone to be that powerful and be completely stupid.
Well, you're not wrong. And she sort of sighs and cracks her knuckles one at a time and thinks and says, how best to explain it? Are you familiar with the concept of multiverse theory?
Uh, yes, I've read a couple books on it. Kind of had to when trying to find you.
Yeah. Well, that kind of makes sense. The exact nature of Memory Lane, the place where I live, my domain, is that it is outside of time. Do you know why I keep it there?
I imagine it has something to do with keeping the others out.
Oh, not at all, not hardly. No,
Then
I keep Memory Lane where it is because it is the perfect vantage point. Outside of time, outside of reality, outside of the universe as a whole, I can see everything from right out my window. Eternity is stretching out in front of me like a map. And certain things, Bob, certain things are constant. And certain things need to happen. Why did I do it? I wasn't insulted. Truth be told, Bob, I could care less what he said about me. I could care less what he said about himself. What I cared about is the fact that it was necessary for his character arc, for him to learn that lesson. As much as he is resisting it, he needed to learn that he needs people in his life. And that being a prideful asshole will get you hurt more often than it'll help you. I didn't do it out of any sense of personal spite. I did it because there is a universal constant that every time this specific set of events happens, he winds up on memory lane with the rest of you. And I end up doing that, and that leads to the best possible outcome.
Bob crosses his arms. He's not looking super convinced.
He's looking into going after my son, right?
Are you gonna try and stop him?
God, no. The kid's a menace. I wouldn't stop him if I tried. Do you know how many timelines I have had to pull people from because he has broken them? and because it is my job to fix it? Do you know how many times that damage has been dealt? Do you know how many times I've had to bring people back from the brink of destruction, from the point where death would be a mercy? No, I'm not going to stop him. But going through memory lane is what pushed him to start.
And Bob is thinking about that. Even though he's your son?
Even though he's my son, even though it is my fault he is the way he is, it is not my place anymore to deal with him.
As someone who's still learning to be a parent, I can't bring myself to agree with you on that.
You don't have to.
I want to stop you. Or make you stop what you're doing.
Why?
Forgetting never helps. You said you could see into any gestures. He puts his arms out and gestures while still holding the clock. You can see all of it, yes?
All of it. Out and out and out forever.
Then you saw the potion incident.
Yes, I did.
Tell me, is it normal for people to forget everything 3 times?
No, it isn't.
In retrospect, Bob isn't trying to hide it. He's not a person that lies.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not a person to try and use he's not a person to try and use his own any kind of emotion to persuade or freaking manipulate someone. So it's very obvious that the expression on his face, the hurt, as he's thinking back to his own experiences, you've been able to see from your vantage point,
Mm-hmm.
all the moments that Bob has been wiped of his memories,
Mm-hmm.
and and you can see the very clear hurt on his face when he thinks back on it. Well, speaking from experience, forgetting never did me any good. It only hurt.
There it is. And she kind of like taps the table and says, forgetting never did you any good. And that's
And it did,
fine.
and it didn't do the people around me any good either.
No, it didn't. Because they didn't need it. And she looks you dead in the eye and says, but there are circumstances. There are injuries that time won't heal. There are things that are done that should not be. There are things that break people, things that bring people to the point where they cannot see a point to going onward, a point to continuing to exist through all of that pain. There are people who are pushed every fucking day to the brink, to the point where they genuinely consider whether death would be a better option. And for those people, Bob, for those people, forgetting is kinder than death. Forgetting and starting again in a time where somebody is looking out for them and making sure that they wind up somewhere where they will be given a chance to be happy and to be healthy and to be successful, that is kinder than dying.
What about the people around them? Do they still remember?
No, they don't. Because
What?
if those people, they don't remember.
Bob looks confused.
You really think I'd be so careless as to just remove one person's memories? What's to stop the people who made them hurt in the first place from going right back after them? And now they have no memories to protect themselves? You think I'm that careless?
You didn't think to clarify that with Sandy?
I did clarify. You never asked.
And
I
Bob
told
just
her.
and Bob just you told a 9-year-old. You told a 9-year-old girl who didn't under I you told a 9-year-old girl
Yes,
who
I
frankly I'm
did.
not sure she knows how I'm not convinced she fully knows how to even handle her situation.
She
And
doesn't know.
okay, she doesn't. And thank God's whatever how many gods there are. There are at least people at least she has people, but it wouldn't change the fact that the doctor was still out there. Even okay, even if say I believe you, say I believe that if you had taken her memories, I'm assuming you'd make the doctor forget about her as well.
Mm-hmm. That was the deal.
Okay. What's to stop him from hurting other people? We would none of us would have ever known about him. And he'd still be out there hurting someone else, breaking someone else.
And she is very calm as she takes a sip of her coffee and looks you in the eye. Bob, I never claimed to be a good person. I work on a personal level. I don't do grander scale right or wrong. I do individual, personal level manipulations that cause that cause specific people to have a chance to be better. I don't I don't work on greater scales of this person has hurt other people and therefore deserves to be gone. Because if I did that, Bob, I would have killed Kyle by now myself. I would have made him stop existing. But you know why I can't do that? Because it's not a part of my domain. My domain is the individual. My domain is memory. My domain is individual people. Would I be able to stop the doctor from hurting anyone else? No, I wouldn't. Not until they came to me after they'd been broken and said, I've been broken. I need to get away. I need him to not be able to find me. I need him to be able to forget me. I don't want to go through that again.
Until they
And
find you? My
no,
family didn't find you.
no,
You pulled
because
all us in.
no, you're right. You're a special circumstance. And sometimes I do find people. I do take them in. And, Bob, I will note something. Even though I've been doing the same voice the whole time, when she started saying the things that people have said to her, her voice shifted to match those people. And you can roll insight on those people's voices if you want.
Yeah, I'll roll insight. 22.
That's a 22. Good job. Yeah,
That's where I
those
put all the stats.
those voices all sounded genuinely horrified and terrified and broken. And they sounded you are still firm in your belief that forgetting never helps. You don't know how else you would help those people. I found you guys. I brought you in on memory lane because every other timeline, that's what happens. Because that is a constant. That was me, again, working at an individual level and interfering with the character arcs of one Gil Treble and Sandy Sweet. That, that isn't the usual happening.
Then what usually happens?
And she runs her finger around the rim of her coffee cup and then snaps her fingers in the air, and a glowing bubble appears in front of her. And inside, you can see a memory because it is being run through on a tape that runs around the edges and projected into the middle. And you see somebody who is on his knees in a hotel room. He looks miserable. He looks like he's been beaten to hell and back. He looks like he looks like he has been through hell, and she looks at you and explains, "This is one of my followers. When I first found him, when he first called me, he had just lost everything. He had just been laughed out of any possible career path that he could have had that would have given him a life. He had just had his entire reputation, his entire life poisoned." And the image shifts and zooms in, and you can see that he is clutching a pocket watch and he is crying. And there's a moment where it stutters and this full color image goes sepia toned as Retrospect comes in. And you can't hear the dialogue from the bubble, but you can hear it because she is saying it, because she remembers every interaction she has. And she says, "Why are you crying? What's happened?" I I don't know what to do anymore. I'm so tired. I can't take this anymore. Please, I just need a way out. I can't do this anymore. All right, hang on. What happened? She ruined everything. I was trying so hard, and she, she said I never would have done that. I wouldn't have done that. I can't do this anymore. Every time I try, every time. All right, get a hold of yourself. Hang on. And in the memory bubble, Retrospect sits down next to the person, resting her sword against her knees, and she looks at them. And she says, you can't see any other way out. There's nothing you can possibly think of that would ever possibly get you out of this situation. No, no, I can't think of anything. I don't know what to do. You've got no family that'll take you in? No friends who'd miss you if you were gone? No, no, there's no one. There's no one.
Can I say, Bob, as soon as he hears that, he looks over at the real Retrospect and goes, "Was there really no one? A lot of people say things when they're upset."
And the memory in the bubble pauses, and she looks up. His family had died in a house fire. His friends had all abandoned him when the rumor that the person who broke him put out became public knowledge. He really had no one. He didn't have an ally or friend in the world. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made him the deal.
There wasn't the possibility that someone could have found him, that he could have found someone?
Maybe there was, but he couldn't see it, and I looked into the future, as I do for all of them, and it would have been a long time, and he wouldn't have lasted that long. That kind of pain, it destroys people. And sure, maybe if somebody had come into that hotel room before I had, maybe if somebody had taken him aside and gotten him professional help, despite everything she said he did, everything he didn't do that everyone believed because she was so persuasive, even if somebody had cared enough to think that somebody who was just a horrible person who'd done horrible things and would continue to do horrible things and was just nasty and mean and awful, even if somebody believed that somebody like that didn't deserve to die and came to look for him, maybe then, maybe he would have had a chance. But the chances of that were 1 in a million. And he called me. So I came.
I'm gonna roll insight again.
Go ahead.
It's 11. Is she telling the truth?
She is telling the truth.
For all I know, you're just showing me this so I believe you. And you've admitted that you're not a good person.
I'm
How
not.
do I know you? How do I know? How do I know you're not going to lie to me? Or try and manipulate me to, I don't know, be on your side?
Because I don't lie, Bob. I had my share of lying before I died. I had my share of lying when I was alive, when I had to lie and swear that I hadn't killed my own father to keep myself alive, that I hadn't killed my husband to keep myself alive, the love of my life and the only person who had ever thought that I was worth saving. I killed them both because I was so goddamn scared of death. And I had to lie constantly to keep anyone from finding out. I'm done with lying. I haven't lied once in the hundreds of years, or almost 100 years, since I became who I am today. I am 90 years old as a goddess, and I haven't told a lie once.
Then tell me this. Do you regret what you did?
Which bit?
Well, I was going to say the killing of your father and your husband.
And she's quiet. She thinks for a minute. And she folds her hands and says, "This answer isn't going to satisfy you. But
I want to know the truth.
then I'm happy to give it to you. I both do and do not regret it. I regret that because of my own stupidity, my own crippling thanatophobia, I destroyed the two people in my life who meant the most to me. And I hurt someone else badly. And I sold my own son into basically a life of slavery. I regret those actions, but I do not regret the consequences they've had. I do not regret being where I am today. I do not regret becoming immortal. I do not regret becoming the person you see in front of you. So yes, I regret that I had to hurt the people that I love. But if I had to, if I was put back then, if somebody could do for me what I do for everyone else and was so careless as to just put me back where I started, then I would do the entire thing over again in a heartbeat.
Hmm. Bob leans back in the chair, and he thinks on that. He doesn't look disappointed with it, but it is making him think. And admittedly, I'm using the silence to think as well.
That's the fun thing about these kinds of conversations. Lots of thinking necessary.
Hmm. So when you... The blade you stabbed Gil with, and he pauses for a second. He's looking at you, Retrospect.
Mm-hmm. And she sort of reaches into thin air and pulls out the sword again. She doesn't point it at you or anything, but she holds it up so that you can see it. She holds it so easily. It seems funny that something so dangerous that can have such far reaching consequences should be moved so easily, so lightly. Seems like it should weigh a lot more.
How many people have you stabbed? Have you stabbed with that?
8.
8?
8. Or at the
That's
very
a lot.
least, 8 who survived.
Ah, I was about to say 8 seemed like a small number.
There were 8 who lived to tell the tale. 9 now, if you count Gil.
I'm still not happy that you stabbed him.
I don't expect you to be. That's a
And
scar that he'll carry forever. And if he doesn't learn how to deal with it, he's going to keep trying to talk himself to an early grave.
Hmm. Yeah, he likely will. And I'm still not happy that you tried to make a deal with a 9-year-old.
I usually don't talk to kids. And she folds her hands and levels her gaze at you and says, "Do you want to know why I tried to make a deal with Sandy?"
I imagine because what the doctor did to her was bad enough. I I saw one of her memories.
You saw one. You saw her getting away. You didn't see everything that came before.
No, I didn't.
That girl has been through hell. And I wasn't ever planning on taking away her memories of you or of the others. I wasn't planning on taking away her memories of the good time that she has had. Because you guys are exactly what she needs. You guys are the help and support that she needs to get better. I offered to take away the memory of all of that pain, all the suffering, everything she was put through. Because she is a sweet kid. She is a good kid who didn't deserve any of that. No child deserves any of that. And you can actually see that Retrospect is starting to get a little angry because those spirals kind of come back to her eyes and her smile kind of drops and she looks angry at the memory of what was done to Sandy. I saw every single one of those memories. I saw every one of all of your memories. I don't cry easily, Bob. It has been harder and harder for me to feel much of anything since I became a goddess. I cried for Sandy. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't offer a child who has been through that kind of hell a chance to forget it and to be forgotten so that she would have a chance to be happy and to not be in that kind of danger. I understand why you stopped me. And You are perfectly valid in your reasoning. You are perfectly valid in your reasoning for stopping her from taking that deal. But it was her choice to make. It was her choice to take that chance to get rid of it. And I had to offer her that choice because I could not live with myself if I saw somebody suffering that terribly, somebody who had been changed that completely against their will, and I didn't try at least once to offer them a way out, because that is not what I do. That is not my domain. My
To give
domain is a second chance, a chance at safety, a chance at happiness. I was perfectly willing to let her stay within this timeline with you because that's what she needed. That would be the best possible way for her to be happy. But living with those memories isn't helping her. It isn't hurting her as actively as it probably could because she has you guys, and you guys are helping her create new happy memories. But those memories, the fact that he remembers her, those could put her in serious danger. And Retrospect actually ends up coughing a little bit and covering her mouth, and she sighs and puts her hands on the table and sort of leans against the table for a minute and rubs at her forehead with her fingers, almost like she's got
retrospect,
a headache.
if retrospect looks at Bob, she will see the first flashes of concern on his face.
After she finishes her coughing fit, she clears her throat and shakes her head and says, "Sorry. Ugh. I'm not sick anymore, but every time I come back here, mm, it likes to try and pretend it's still there."
Well, then I probably shouldn't keep you for much
No,
longer.
I don't mind if you do, because you still have questions. Well, if you do. I don't know. I can't read your mind. That's the one thing I can't do. But if you still have questions, I can answer. I'm not asking you to be my friend, Bob. I'm not
I don't.
asking you to like me. I'm
I
not
don't want
asking you to
to.
agree with anything that I do. But I am asking you to understand that there is a reason behind what I do, and that I am not so careless as to just pick people up and put them back. I don't just do what's been done to you 3 times over now. I don't just take away memories. Well, actually, no, because if we don't count mine, I don't do what's been done to you twice over. I don't just take away memories forever and then put somebody right back where they started, because that's not productive. I am careful. I am a meticulous planner. I go through each and every single one of my followers' memories, and I find where things went wrong. I find the choices that led them where they were, and I put them in a position where they won't make those again. I find the best possible timeline. That's why I have my followers work for me for 5 years, because I need that much time to find where they will best be safe, where they will best be happy. I am not a good person, Bob. Will never pretend to be, because I started doing this because I got bored. I started doing this because it was more entertaining to try and fix people than it was to try and put them back into a timeline where they would just fall apart again. I won't pretend I'm a good person. I won't lie to you and say that I regret everything I've done and that I would never do it again if I had the chance. I won't lie to you and say that I haven't killed, that I haven't tortured people, that I haven't hurt people to get where I am today. I won't lie to you and try and make you think that I am some paragon, some unsung, misunderstood hero, because I'm not. I am not a good person. I'm not a bad person either. I am a catalyst. That is my role. I make things happen. Sometimes those things are for the better, sometimes they are for the worse, and it is always a matter of perspective on which it is.
Okay. And Bob stands up. You're right. I'm not going to forgive you for what you did. And I don't fully agree either. I understand a bit better, but not all of it. But I would like to. So here's what's going to happen. And he sets the clock onto the table. I'm going to call you again. I don't know when because I'm immortal and I also have a schedule. But I'm going to call you again and we're going to talk again. Does that sound fine to you?
That's fine with me.
Good. If I were to ask you about the doctor, what would you tell me?
It would depend on what you asked.
I'd like to know where he is. Among other things.
And she sighs and folds her hands and says, then I would tell you that even though I have lots of answers, there are some of them that I can't give because it is either not my place to or it is not the time for it. And I will hope that you try to understand.
That it's not your place or that it's not the time.
Either or. In this specific case, it's not my place in this story to tell you where he is, and it's not the right time either, because you've already got something coming up. And it's not going to be easy.
Bob actually has a genuine laugh at that. Retrospect, you've seen my life. When has anything I've gone through been easy?
Well, there's a point to that.
Well, all right. Well, then until next time. I would tell you to stay out of trouble, but figure there'd be no point to that.
Hmm. She shrugs. All depends on your definition of trouble. See you around.
One more thing.
Hmm?
That person that you showed me, the memory. I imagine you get a lot of people like that still.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those people call you because they themselves believe that they have nothing.
Yes.
I don't know if this would be much to ask, but on one of those occasions, I'd like to be there to try and be there for that person. That way they don't have nothing.
And she thinks about this. Tell you what, if I get called sometime when we are talking, you can come with me and you can try and help them find another way out.
Bob holds his hand out to you. Shake on it.
She takes off one of her gloves and she shakes your hand.
I'm holding you to that.
I keep my word.
Hmm. Well, then until next time.
Until next time.
Goodbye, Retrospect.
Goodbye. And time starts to move again. And she is gone.
Bob takes a breath that he feels like he's been holding that entire time. And he looks at the area around him. He goes over to the sigil on the ground and he kicks dirt over it. He collects his stuff back together. He goes to his car. He actually sits there for a good while. And just, he can't believe he just did that.
You just debated ethics with a goddess.
Yeah, he did. And he also just said that he was going to talk to her again. He debates he debates if he should tell any of his family this. But you know what? He can't think of an answer right now. So he's just gonna start up his car, drive home, and sneak into bed with Ross and go to sleep.
Aw.
He's tired.
He is justifiably tired.
Yeah.
And elsewhere, outside of time, outside of space, outside of reality, Retrospect appears back on memory lane, and she walks down the street in the rain. The rain doesn't hit her, it never does, even without an umbrella. And she walks over to the house that served as the setting for the game Memory Lane. She knocks on the door and the lights turn on inside, and she walks in. It's different for her than it was for you. It's different than it is for anyone, because for her, this is home. And she walks to a room that once housed horrifying memories. And she looks at a portrait. It's not just of the little boy holding the flower anymore. It's a family portrait of her and her husband and their son. And she looks at it, and she's quiet for a good long while. Then she gently knocks on the frame, turns away, and leaves the room, going back to the clock tower, going back to where she sits to wait and watch for whoever needs her next, for whenever she's next called. And she thinks about the conversation she just had. And she kind of laughs and says, "Huh, I was really expecting him to try and kill me." And if you're okay with it, that's where we end our FPS.
Ooh!
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Fable, for being up to this.
Thank you. That was awesome. Oh, man.
Everybody say goodbye to our listeners. Goodbye, listeners.
Yeah. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening. We hope to see you next time. Bye.